Well, I'm so glad you joined me for the movement practices for our developmental patterns. What I'm going to be doing is also taking these into movement practices that you might be familiar with so that you might experience them in a different way. So we're going to start seated. It's very important to be comfortable. So if you do have, tighter hips, tighter back, it's really nice to sit up on something. You can even do this in a chair. So one of the things that I also love about all of this work is that it's very accessible. So now with this underneath me, I'm able to release the hips and I'm actually able to find my tail more. But we're going to start with the head. So push of the head, so yield and push really come before reach and pull, but then they interweave together. It's not like one, 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 one. So there's lots of different ways to experience this. Babies are going to be down on the ground and using their heads, so there is a practice like that. We're going to just do it seated today with your hands on your head. Now, let's say this wasn't comfortable for your shoulders. You can use a long towel, you could use a flex band, a scarf, and just pull it over. So this is very subtle. We do not want to be pushing down on our head. I just want you to take a moment here and just relax a little bit. Notice if you're going into some of that propping that we kind of think of as, I have good posture. So softening a little bit, relaxing the jaw, closing your eyes. That allows you to go deep inside. And the hands are on the crown of the head. And take a moment to feel your hands on your head. And then take a moment to feel your head in your hands. And then can you feel them together in relationship? So it's not static. There's a little bit of a conversation going on. Now, your head is going to start to gently push into your hands. And this is creating a condensing. And that condensing tone is moving from the head downwards into the center of the body. Now, it can be somewhat typical that we are challenged by these patterns. I am. So this is a pattern that I work on a lot. I have neck issues, I have jaw issues, and the more that I work with this, the more I find more fluidity and more support for that. So if this is very foreign to you, there might be something there to practice, okay? And it's foreign to all of us when we first start to do this anyway. So what I want you to go ahead and explore is just noticing the tone in this area. Is there a tendency to want to grip the neck? Is there a tendency to collapse? So trying to experience, explore, get curious about my tone. So maybe a few visuals is when someone, cracks an egg on someone's head and the yolk just slowly comes downwards. Yeah. So just a little push into the hands, and then there's a yielding. You soften away. And then there's a push. And this is traveling down to the pelvis. So push of the head is going to inform tone of the pelvis. And we think about pelvic floor issues. This is part of this. Not all the time, but it might be. So here is this yield and push of the head. If you do headstands, push of the head. Vaginal birth, that's how you got out, push of the head. Yeah. So we don't, do a lot of things with push of the head. We can do it without our hands. Maybe there's more of an awareness of that push of the head. Just notice what that does for you. Now we are going to move into push of the tail. So let's just yield and then a little push. Now this might be challenging if we are someone that is used to doing that propping where you're going to do this and maybe feel tightness in the lower back or overactivation of all of those back muscles. So this push, say push of the tail. What if you were to think a little bit more, middle of the body? And this isn't this up and down. It is, remember, we're round. So there's this expanding, omnidirectional expanding. And then you yield. So when we're doing this, maybe you're starting to feel those patterns. It's like there's a sponging, there's an expand and condense. There can be pulsating where there's this wave-like quality. We can turn this into little, undulations, yield and push. And the push of the tail goes all the way up, reach of the head. Whereas this is the push of the head created a reach of the tail. So this is finding these patterns, and this is a very simplistic way to do it, finding these patterns head to tail. So this is defining our center. And then let's just take a pause. Now we're going to go on to the belly, and we are going to do a little swan. We're going to explore a little yield and push through our arms. We do upper body first. So this is a familiar position, yoga, Pilates, here we are. And the legs, let's just take the legs maybe a little parallel. They don't need to be together, they shouldn't be together. Just let them flow out, but if they rotate out a little bit, it's fine. And we open up the hands. So middle finger, middle of the wrist. So we just get a little organized here. In our adult bodies, we wouldn't be, worrying about that so much. As a baby, as we're, learning to push, we might even still have little baby hands. So yielding, softening into the support of the ground, and then with your push, feeling that in the hands and moving up through the arms, through the shoulder joints, into the collarbones, breastbone, ribs wrap around, and then there's a beautiful reach and pull of the head and the tail in this position, and then you yield. So yield, push has everything to do with our relationship with gravity, and we can feel that tone and that support go in, and reach and pull is with space. So now we have this support with the hands, and we can begin to see our environment. And then just yielding. So go ahead and let's just experience this together, practice this together a few times. So this isn't about, joints and levers and contract, and this is really just this beautiful sponging, fluid sensing and feeling of my relationship with gravity and space, and how I am interconnected and how I'm in relationship. Reach of the tail, reach of the head, yield and push, and you could continue to push this next time and bring yourself up. And the belly we don't need to draw the abdominal muscles in, because this push from the ground and the supportive space is creating that support that we think we might need by pulling the abdominals in. But if you do that, go ahead and try that. All of a sudden, there's just a lot of effort because that's actually pulling us forwards. When we're trying to go up, we're going up and back. And then just slowly returning down. Let's try that one more time. And if you feel jammed in your lower back, you can take the arms further forward and push. Nice push of the hands. You can feel the hands on the floor. You can feel the floor on the hands. Reach and pull through the head, through the tail. You can always check in with movement. So we flow this through the shoulders, to the collarbones, to the breastbone, to the ribs that flow around, and then a beautiful reach and pull of the head and the tail, and the legs flow out, and then coming down. Now we are going to move into that ab curl that was in the video. So we come down, and I usually like to have something under my head. So that's something to check in with. If our head is back here like this, then your nervous system, you feel like you're going to fall. So your body's going to tense up. Okay. Plus, that's not a great place to lift the head from. It's not connected to anything. So we put something under the head. We bring the head in line with the rest of the spine. That rhymed. I don't know what my blanket's doing. Smooth it out there a little bit. Okay, good enough. So let's take the hands behind the head and then bring the elbows forwards so that the shoulder blades are gliding forwards. So now they're actually moving into that flexion rather than elbows wide, which actually pulls us more into extension. So heels in line with sits bones, or they can be a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow. And instead of thinking my front abdominal muscles are going to pull me up, what would it be to experience the back body as the support? That's the yield and the push. So as you come up, yield and push. You can follow it. It's like your little water balloon. That's the example I used in one of the articles in the videos. So the water just keeps rolling to the lowest point. Why? Gravity. So that actually helps to create a foundation where we can fly off the floor. Space comes up underneath and then return. Now let's add that little reach of the tail. So little nod of the head and we flow up. Now here's where, we could hold neutral. I'm holding neutral and I'm trying to work around it. For my body, I actually end up with a lot of tension in my lower back, and I'm kind of wondering what this is doing with pelvic floor. And I'm going to lower because that doesn't feel good to me. That is a fragmenting of energy. And it's an over-efforting of a lot of abdominal muscles. But just remember what I said in the first video. Someone might need to experience this position more to really know where they are before they're trying to get to somewhere else. So let's say we know where we are and we're coming up. Now there's a reach of the tail. So now the energy goes through. I'm not flattening, I'm not pushing down, but I'm not holding. So I'm reaching with the tail. Now watch my head, or I shouldn't even say watch my head. See what happens with your body. When you reach your tail, what is happening with the upper body? Is it actually coming up more? Because it's being supported by this reach and pull of the tail. And now your head is connected to your spine. And we don't need these neck muscles to hold the head up. We have the energy. We have the support of space. And then returning down. So remember what reach and pull is. Reach and pull is interacting with the environment around you. So why would we do this, right? Why would we want to do this as a baby? Because we want to interact with our environment. We want to see something. We want to go somewhere. We want to go try to find where the food is. So these movements have this purpose to them. And then we return down. Let's do it one more time. So you flow up, reach to the tail, feel that reach to the head as well. There's this gentle yield and push down below. And then what if you brought your legs up? And there's still that reach and pull of the tail. And it is a reaching out and up. So there's this beautiful, balanced, energetic, we can say curve, but we're not holding with, muscles, and our muscles are moving. I'm sure you're feeling your muscles, and if you need to, take a rest. But they're supported by this underlying tone and relationship and inner connectivity. All right, so let's move on from that, and let's go into a quadruped. We're gonna plank it out, and we're gonna add a little fancy side bend and crunch. So, quadruped is the in-between place. We're not all the way up, we're not all the way down. Oh, so much good stuff can happen here. So, your knees can be right underneath your hips. Your hands can actually be a little bit forward so that we can get the press of the fingers so that we have that energy to go up. Press of the fingers actually lifts the capitate bone, the arch, and it lifts, and that's a whole nother practice. But this way, we create space in the joints, okay, through our relationship with gravity and space. So quadruped. See if you can yield and push here. Communication through the joints, through the ligaments, through the connective tissue. Little yielding and pushing. Can you find that sponging quality of your whole body? Little condense, little expand. And there's a reach and pull through the head and the tail. Not like, oh, reach and pull, just very subtle. Reach and pull. Now we're going to tuck the toes underneath. And let's push up. Now, we don't want to levitate up like that. Let's use our body intelligence. So let's use a little push of the hands. That flows back to the tail. And this is connection through a pattern we do called navel radiating pattern, which is in one of the articles and videos. And it connects all of our limbs to each other through the center. So hands are going to push, and it's going to send that energy, and the tail is now going to reach up. And we can try that a few more times. So there's this yield, and then push of the hands that flows up through the center, collarbones, breastbone, flies around the ribs, head and tail, and up we go. Okay, and let's do that 2 more times. Just a nice little push and lift. It's like you're channeling your inner toddler. And lift. Now let's move into a plank. So we don't want to harden a plank. We don't want to be like a concrete block. We want to be responsive and connected. So could you find in your plank some movement? Can you shift? Can you rebound out of the ground? And how are your abdominals feeling? Are they working and responding? That's what we want. Yeah. And then what if you just went into stillness, but it's still not still, and it's still work. Your feet are supporting your hips and your lower back, and your pelvic halves are actually part of the legs, and your arms are supporting your upper body, flowing upwards right through that rib cage, And then here we go. Reach and pull from the head and the tail. And then could we do another push of the hands and lift the tail up? So if we're in a Pilates class, on a reformer, here's our downward facing dog, not downward facing dog, or elephant. And then in yoga, it's our downward facing dog. There's this energy, you push with the hands, reach of the tail. Those are developmental patterns. Your feet are yielding and pushing. And they have a connection all the way up to the head as well. So there's our planking. Now let's just come down a moment, give ourselves a little rest, because that's some serious work. But it's responsive. It's motor control. It's not about stabilizing. That's just the way I like to think of it. So now let's do that fancy little side bend crunch. And what we're going to involve is a sense of condensing on one side and expanding on the other. So here we go. We find the yield and push of the hands and the feet because they're in relationship with the ground. We have the reach and pull of the head and the tail. We want the front body to connect and really hug into the back body. And then let's take one leg away and you're going to pull the knee. You're doing a little side bend here. Now this side is condensing. You're drawing in. That's very different than crunch or contract. Draw into yourself like a little sponge and notice what happens on the other side. And then put that foot back down. Try that on the other side. You can do this with a chair. You can also do this standing at a wall. And then other side. Let's do it one more time each side. Yield and push, reach and pull, and then condense and expand. And here we go, other side. Condensing on one side to expand on the other. And then bring yourself back down. Take a little rest. These developmental patterns are relationship to gravity and space, this condense, expand, sponging, vibration, pulsation, all of these patterns exist underneath more of these complex movements. And when we access them, we suddenly have a lot more ease of movement because we're more coordinated, and the only thing coordination is integration. So now let's do one final practice, and we're going to come to standing, and we are going to experience our squats. The, gold standard of any fitness practice, right? Got to do your squats. So you can have your feet where it feels good for you, okay? With the feet though, we have something called a tripod foot, big toe mound, little toe mound, and heel. And when we get those 3 points to really feel connected into the ground, we have balanced the front and the back of the body. So the feet really have an impact on everything upwards. So just feel your feet, just a little side to side, softening the knees, softening the hips. So this is very fluid. And we are sporadic. So when we really learn how to release a little bit, you're going to find that you're not just going side to side, you're actually going in this figure eight kind of pattern. It's just proof that we're round. And then you're going to just take a pause. Soften the ankles and the knees. And then there is going to be a reach of the tail to move into this squat. And there's a reach of the head. And we're yielding into the ground. We don't need to pull ourselves down. Soften the ankles, let the feet open and spread, let the knees release, let the hips soften. Space is supporting you. And then to come out of this, just push with the feet. Let space carry you up. And let's do that a couple more times. So we just take a little squat down, releasing. We don't need to hold the quads. We don't need to squeeze the butt. Release into the ground and then push. And let's just keep going with this. If you want to add a reach of the arms, you can. Can you feel the fingers to the tail connection? How about the feet to the head? Push of the feet, reach of the head. Your tail is a limb. Your tail's like a little rudder in this practice. And we could do a few more. So you're using your muscles. You wouldn't be able to move if you didn't use your muscles and your nervous system, but how are we supporting them? And return. Let's add just a little rotation. So let's come down. And again, you can do this in a chair. Lots of different ways to experience this. So we're going to take our left hand and place it on the right thigh and reach the right arm to the side. The feet are rooting and your hand is going to push. Follow that energy up through that arm, right through the center, and there is a reach. And there's a reach of the head and the tail. Now, if it doesn't feel good to have this hand way over, you can simply put it on the other thigh as well. And push a little bit more and see how that push creates a sense of expansion so you can reach. And maybe rotate more. And then returning, let's try that on the other side. So whatever leg works for you, you're gonna open, but you're gonna start with that push of the hand on the thigh. That takes the energy to the center. And then from the center, you flow out, reaching into space. Feet are doing a yield and push. Tail and the head are doing a reach and pull with this beautiful spiraling spine. And then return and bring yourself all the way up. How do you feel? So I hope you enjoyed this. I would really love to hear any comments, feedback, questions. So I really do believe questioning is a great thing. Curiosity is a great thing. Discussion is a great thing. So I just invite all of that. Thanks for joining me.